Welcome everyone. Sorry, definitely running a little bit behind today. So that means we're gonna do some extra breathing at the beginning of class so I can kind of pull it together. Welcome to Vinyasa Yoga, all levels. Today we are gonna do a little bit of Jivamukti stuff, which if you have ever done that type of yoga, it's very, very similar to any kind of flow yoga, vinyasa, Ashtanga, power. There's a few movements that I really, really like, so I'll incorporate those. As always, please do what is right for your body, what is best for your body. I am going to be giving multiple levels, so feel free to back down from whatever the more advanced level is to an easier version. And yeah, just don't forget to breathe and enjoy. All right, we're gonna get started, like I said, with some breathing. So if you wanna go to your mat and get comfortable, I'm just gonna make one more adjustment here. Oh, the reflection's so hard to see everything. Okay. So find a comfortable seated position. If you wanna grab your bolster or block to prop yourself up, that totally works. And we're just going to take a few breaths here. Let the day go. Bring your attention to your practice and just what's occurring on your mat. Start to breathe more deeply. Full inhales, feeling the body expand in 360 degrees. And then as you exhale, feel the body as though it was all collapsing around the spine for support. We're going to do a lot of back bend work today, a lot of back strengthening. We're going to focus on that for two reasons. One, I have a feeling you all are sitting and not doing enough to keep your posture nice and strong. And two, probably the only complaint I have about yoga is that there's just not enough back exercise, back work, back strengthening. There's a lot of back bends, but not always on the strengthening side of things. And so for me, I fill that gap with weights, but I think that it's important to know if you don't want to use weights or you don't have them available to know what you can do on your mat. So we're going to take a few more breaths. Find joy in little distractions like this. Rather than it being frustrated, let a distraction bring a smile to your face. Whether it's a little kitty belly or a baby belly, whatever sweet thing you have at home. One more breath. And then go ahead and come onto all fours. And we're going to push back into child's pose. And for this child's pose, I want your knees to be together. Big toes touching. Reach the fingertips out. And breathe into the lower back. Go ahead and start to walk your hands over to one side. Maybe the hips drop a little bit in the other direction. And take a breath with both hands parallel to each other. And then pick up the hand that is closest to the front of your mat and try to reach it up and over the other hand. Lengthening through that side.
Feeling the stretch from your lower back all the way up through the ribs, the shoulder, maybe even a little bit in your tricep. Go ahead and walk back to center. And then walk the hands to the other side. First, taking a breath with both hands parallel. And then again, picking up that top hand and reaching just a little bit further up and over the bottom hand. One more breath. And walk the hands back to center. Inhale, and on your exhale, walk the fingers a little bit farther forward, and then I want you to hover the elbows above the ground as you try to drag your chest through, coming into your first cobra. Nice, gentle cobra. Not a lot of height off the ground yet. Go ahead and release the forehead to the ground. Hands come tented, and then we're going to do kind of a shoulder roll with our shoulders. So picking one up, and then rolling through to the other. You can alternate sides, or if you prefer a particular direction, that's fine too. Bring the hands back underneath the elbows and exhale, push yourself up to the top of a push-up, coming into plank. Taking an inhale here, reaching through the body, noticing those lines of energy out through the heels, out through the crown of the head. And then on an exhale, take those two lines, break them in half, and push the hips towards the sky. So you're still lengthening through the head towards the ground. You're still lengthening through the heels towards the ground. But now you have that peak with the hips towards the sky. Feel free to walk the heels or keep them steady. And then we're going to start to walk them in a couple inches at a time, noticing how just a few inches in the orientation of the feet will change how this feels and how easy it is to get the heels to the ground, or maybe the intensity in your wrists, which if you feel that, you can come up onto the knuckles. But eventually you're going to make your way forward to a forward fold. Go ahead and wrap and hang. Unwrap the elbows, hands come back to the ground. Inhale and exhale, squeeze the belly button to the spine and roll up one vertebrae at a time. Inhale, shoulders come up. Exhale, shoulders down the back and hands to your heart. Inhale. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, back to the ground and gently step back to plank. Soften the knees and push back to child's pose, keeping the toes tucked. So you're getting an extra stretch in the toes, also opening up and lengthening the lower back. On your next exhale, walk the fingertips an inch or two forward and then drag the chest through, coming into cobra. Coming up a little bit higher now, but still not a lot of weight, if any weight at all, in the hands. Release the forehead back down to the ground and exhale, push up into plank. Inhaling to lengthen. Exhale, down dog. Inhale, holding it here for 3 breaths. Finding the alignment through the tailbone, making sure the shoulders aren't creeping up to the ears, lengthening the back of the legs as much as you can without sacrificing the extension through the tailbone. On your inhale, rise up onto the toes and you can hop or step forward. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, release. Inhale. And then on the exhale, roll yourself back up. So we're kind of changing how we get back up to mountain. Inhaling, shoulders to the ears. Exhaling, hands to your heart. Inhale, hands rise up and swan dive forward. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, release. And if you'd like to jump, you can, but we're not going straight into chaturanga, so I would recommend sticking with the step because we're going to drop our knees, and every time we flow through our vinyasa from mountain pose, we're going to flow first through child's pose. And then we're going to really focus on opening the chest as you dive through chaturanga, and then focus on the upper back as you stay in cobra. Now, if you just really, really hate cobra and you want to come to up dog, you can, but I would recommend trying to stay here and noticing how your muscles react. Where are you feeling this in your back? Continue to pull the shoulder blades together and down the back, and then release forehead to the ground. Exhaling, top of a push-up. You can stay here for the inhale, and then exhale, down dog. So this time we're gonna pick up one foot, and traditionally we keep the hips square, but today we're gonna do a lot of back bends and opening the hips to get there. So go ahead and roll the hips open, point the toe as high as you can to the sky, and now bring your focus to your shoulders and square the shoulders as much as you can with the mat or with the ground. On your exhale, bring the foot all the way through and drop the back knee to the ground. Pad up if you need the cushion. Coming up into a low lunge, you can bring the hands to the sky. If you want, you can keep the hands on the knee. Maybe interlock the fingers and point the index fingers to the sky. One more breath. And release the hands back down to the ground. And then step back to that split down dog. So staying on the same side. This time we're going to add a little bit of a knee bend. So the knee should still continue pointing towards the sky. If you don't have that flexibility, I like to keep the foot up because it helps me feel like there's a string pulling me a little higher. On your next exhale, pull the knee through and drop the back knee once again. Inhaling up. This time, if you'd like, you can untuck the toes, interlock the fingers, and then start to reach behind. Gaze comes as far as you can to the back wall. Make sure that you continue to reach through the fingertips so you don't dump into the lower back. And the abs continue to stay strong to also support the lower back. One more breath. And as you exhale, release and shift the hips back into half splits. Now in the half splits, we have a tendency to roll over onto our bottom leg. Try to keep the hips as square as possible. So if that means you need to walk this hand out a little further to help you keep your balance, that's fine. One more breath. And on your exhale, sink forward, tuck the back toes, and we're gonna step just to plank, dropping the knees to the ground, finding child's pose. And then on the next exhale, dragging the heart through, coming into cobra or up dog if you just really, really want to stick with that. But again, I encourage you to try something a little bit different. Release the forehead to the ground and exhale, push up to the top of a push-up or plank, and then exhale back to down dog. Opposite foot rises up. Notice the shift in the hips as you reach, as you reach with the toes. And then bring your focus to your shoulders and square your shoulders as much as you can. On an exhale, bring the foot through and gently drop that back knee to the ground. Coming up first, just to the low lunge, interlocking the fingers. Try to bring the opposite thumb on top if you can. And we're just gonna sink here for a few breaths, opening up the hip flexor of the back leg. Reaching straight, no back bend yet. And on your next exhale, releasing the hands down to the ground and shifting back to that split down dog. Now it's time, if you'd like, you can add the bend in the knee. Kneecap continues to point straight to the sky. Maybe you look under your shoulder and you can see the bottom of your foot. Wave hello. And on an inhale, extend that foot back up. Exhale, bring it all the way through, dropping the back knee to the ground, untucking the toes this time, rising up, and then finding that little back bend. So not only do we tend to lose our posture when we sit a lot, but our hip flexor gets really tight, which adds to that. So not only are we extending to have the good posture in both our back, but also in our hip flexor. On an exhale, release the hands to the ground and shift back to half splits. If you don't have a lot of flexibility in your hamstring, absolutely walk the hands back up and feel free to grab your fun pandemic yoga blocks to give yourself a little bit of height. Again, try to square the hips, so if you need to, walk that hand out a little bit to keep your balance. One more breath. And exhale, shift forward, tuck the back toe, and just step to plank. Knees soften to the ground, push back, child's pose first. And then on an exhale, instead of your chaturanga, bringing the chest through, coming into cobra, and then releasing the forehead to the ground and pushing up to plank. That extra little push-up is really, really great if you struggle with chaturanga and you're trying to build up that strength. On your exhale, push back, down dog, and we'll stay here for 3 breaths. On your next inhale, rise up onto the toes, and if you want to step forward, you can, but if you want to add the hop, you can hop back to the front. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, release for the full cycle of breath. Both exhale and inhale in this case. And then exhale, curl yourself back up. Inhaling, shoulders to ears. Exhaling, hands to your heart.
Inhale, sweep the hands up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, release, and gently step to plank. Remember, no jumping here unless you're just gonna die without the jump. Soften the knees to the ground and push back to child's pose. On the exhale, open the heart as you drag the chest through, cobra, and then exhale, release. On an exhale, come up to plank, and then shift yourself back. Inhale, one foot comes up, reach straight for the sky first, then let's add a little extra heat. This is optional if you want. Same elbow. Inhale, straight up. Exhale, opposite elbow. Inhale, up, hips are open. Exhale, bring it through. Now, if you'd like, you can continue to drop that back knee. Otherwise, go ahead and drop the heel instead and come up to warrior one. Again, interlock the fingers and reach straight for the sky. No back bend yet. Continue to sink into that front leg. The knees should be as close to a 90-degree angle as possible. Hips are open. One more breath. And on an exhale, release and flow right back to that split down dog. So again, this time we're gonna open it up, and I want you to pretend like you're about to drop into wild thing. So we're not gonna drop yet, but find that happy balance where you're not falling over, but now you're not only getting the openness in the hip, but in a little bit of the obliques on that side. Inhale back to center, and exhale, bring the foot through, finding warrior one first. Now, if you would like, you can continue to reach with the fingertips straight to the sky. If you want to add a back bend, you have a couple of different options. You can interlock behind, or you can come into reverse prayer. Either way, as you back bend, I want you to think about having a string tied right to the center of your chest, and the string is drawing you up rather than trying to reach behind. So again, we're not dumping any weight or putting pressure on the lower back. All of our back bends are done nice and safely to stretch and strengthen the back, not to overextend. One more breath. And exhale, straighten the legs. You come back up to upright. You can absolutely bring the hands to either side of your foot, or you can keep the hands in that reverse prayer and fold forward. So I like to pause with my body parallel to the ground, square my hips a little bit more, and then if I still have the range of motion in my hamstring, I fold a little farther forward. Just like we've talked about with triangle, when you're in pyramid pose, squeeze the quad of that front leg so that you protect the knee and don't hyperextend. Now, if you're the type of person that has a tendency to hyperextend, please bring your hands to the ground and soften the knee just the teeniest, tiniest bit. You'll still get the stretch in the hamstring, but you won't put any unnecessary pressure on your knee. If you're not sure about that, ask somebody who's had knee problems, and they will tell you. Be very, very, very kind to your knees. Don't hyperextend. One more breath, and exhale, rise back up, releasing the hands, warrior one. If you did reverse prayer and your wrists need a little love, give them a couple of rolls. And then exhale, release to the ground. And inhale, holding plank for a moment. And then softening the knees to the ground
and pushing back to child's pose. Inhale, feel the expansion in the lower back, and then exhale. Slight arch as you drive through to cobra. Exhaling, releasing the forehead and pushing up to plank. No rush here. Take the breath to find that strong line of energy out through the heel and out through the head. And then exhale, use the abs to push to down dog. Opposite foot comes up. Point straight to the sky first. And then exhale, a little bit of core work. Elbow to knee. Back up. Exhale, opposite elbow. Back up. And then this time reaching through. So again, my level ones, if you need to drop that back knee to the ground, you can. Or my level twos, we're gonna come into warrior one. Again, interlock, opposite thumb on top. And just take this time in warrior one to open up the hip flexor first before you try to add on. One more breath, continue sinking into the front leg. And then release forward. And inhale back to that split down dog. So bend the knee. Maybe you're here and you want to just focus on pointing the kneecap to the sky. Or maybe you want to start playing with your balance. Reaching the foot towards the ground. Maybe even tenting the opposite hand. One more breath, and come back to center first, and then pull the knee all the way through. Starting with warrior one. No rush. Find the openness in the hip as you square them towards the front of the room or the front of the mat. And then again, your choice. You can release the hands behind and interlock the fingers for a back bend. Or you can take that same back bend, but with the hands in prayer. Continue to sink into the front leg. Try to keep that 90-degree angle. Keep reaching the chest towards the sky. And on your next exhale, extend the front leg as you come back to center, and then start to hinge forward. Stopping for a moment, parallel to the ground, seeing how this feels. And then if you have more, maybe folding forward over that foot a little farther. And I want you to think about, instead of reaching the nose to the knee, try to reach the nose towards the shin. So don't let your chin jut out. Think about extending through the neck and trying to reach a little bit farther. That will help you keep a nice long spine rather than sacrificing the stretch in the hamstring for a curve in the spine. Again, taking care to not hyperextend the knee of the front leg. And then when you're ready, coming back up, warrior one. Inhale and exhale. Inhaling to plank, no rush. Pushing back to child's pose on the exhale. Inhale, filling the back. And then exhale, shifting forward to cobra. Noticing hopefully that you're getting a couple inches higher every time you go through cobra. Release the forehead to the ground and exhale, push up to plank and then shifting down dog. 3 breaths here. One thing that I do like about splitting your down dog with open hips is it does put a little extra intensity in your Achilles and your calf. So if your heels are really high off the ground, it's a good way to start to open up the back of the legs to get the heels a little closer. One more inhale, and on your exhale, go ahead and hop or step forward. Inhaling, flat back. Exhaling, release. And then inhaling, staying right there. It's so hard to break that habit. Exhale, roll up one vertebrae at a time, using the abs to support the back. Inhale, shoulders to ears. Exhale, shoulder blades down the back, hands to your heart. Inhale. Exhale, fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, release. And gently step to plank. Soften the knees and push back to child's pose. Inhaling to expand the back. And then exhaling, slight arch as you come through to cobra. Release the forehead to the ground, and then exhale, push up to plank. Take a big breath in plank, no rush. Exhale, down dog. Inhale, one foot comes up, reach with the toe, and then exhale, we're gonna do a little bit more core work, but this time, bring your knee to the elbow, and then drop the knee to the wrist, and then opposite wrist, back up to the elbow, and extend. Drop the foot behind you, and this time we are gonna go into wild thing, so very carefully, slowly roll over until that foot touches the ground and you're able to extend. If you can reach that hand all the way to the ground and come into wheel, go for it. More power to you. When you're ready, gently shift back to your split down dog. And exhale, bring the foot through. We're gonna come into warrior one more time. I love some of these more basic poses. There's no point in rushing. Take your time. Find the challenge for you. I don't care if you've been doing yoga for 20 years. Warrior 1 and Warrior 2 should always feel challenging. And if it doesn't, take some time to figure out why. Are you slacking in your alignment? Can you get a little bit more length somewhere? There's always somewhere to improve. On an exhale, bring it through and step back. Didn't actually mean to do 2 back bends on this side, but you know, what the hell. One more time, coming into wild thing, just for a moment, and then back to split down dog. Exhale, warrior 1. And this time, we're all gonna try for the reverse prayer. Now, if this is challenging all by itself, just stay here. If you want to add a balance element, then go ahead and shift forward. I'm trying not to clock my head on the window and come into warrior 3. Perfect. One more breath in warrior 3. And then we're gonna release whatever version the hands are in, bring them to airplane arms. And then I want you to roll open into half moon. Maybe you stay here, or maybe you go for the hold. Gently release the hold and keep that floating leg lifted. Hand comes to the ground and come into your standing splits. Now, maybe you can wrap one hand and pull your forehead a little closer to your knee. Maybe you can wrap both hands, or maybe you need your blocks and you're going to come kind of more into a supported warrior three. Lots of different options. You do what is right for you. And if you have a wall handy, if you want, while I take a little water break, you can push yourself into the wall and use the wall to help you open up the legs a little bit more. Okay, so from your standing split, release the hands back down to the ground and gently step first into a high lunge, and then release the palms and come into plank. Inhale, exhale, knees to the ground, push back, child's pose. Deep inhale, and then exhale, shifting through, coming into cobra. Exhaling, forehead to the ground, pushing up to plank. One more inhale, exhale, down dog. Inhale, opposite side, lift the leg first. And then we're gonna do that fun core work. So bring the knee to the same elbow, drop it down to the wrist. It's still floating, it's not touching the ground. Opposite wrist. Back up to the elbow, and then extend. And then because we did it on both sides, even though it wasn't my intention, we're gonna do that back bend. We're gonna do it twice. Once before our warrior one, and once after. One more breath. Careful of the standing shoulder or the arm that's grounded as you roll back to your split down dog. And then exhale, bring the foot through. Starting with warrior one. Opposite thumb on top. Reaching through the pointer fingers. And just finding stillness here. No rush. Take a few breaths to check in. If you have been practicing for a really long time, what can you do? What maybe needs to be tweaked a little bit more so that you continue to find value in the pose? One more breath, and exhale, release. Inhaling the foot back to split down dog. Again, carefully making your way over to your wild thing. And then right back to split down dog. And exhale, bring the foot through, warrior one. So right away, go ahead and release the hands and find reverse prayer right between your shoulder blades. And then start to shift forward as though you were a rocket launcher. And then push up and try to find your balance in warrior three. Hopefully you have a little bit more room than I do, so you can shift forward without clocking your head on anything. That's always a good thing. One more breath. And then from warrior three, this is the hardest part. Keep your balance as you move. First to airplane arms. And then roll the airplane arms open. And maybe you stay here in half moon. Or maybe you want to go ahead and reach for the bind. One more breath, feeling the openness in the hip flexor of the floating leg and the openness as you arch the back. Release, the bind and roll the hand towards the ground. Now if you can, floating leg goes a little bit higher. Start to walk the hands back. Maybe you wrap, or maybe you take it easy, grab your blocks, and stay in a supported warrior 3. One more breath. Release your hands back down to the ground and gently step back, first to high lunge. So I don't want you to rush, so maybe take the fingertips up off the ground, brush the ground, and then plant the palms and step to plank. Exhale, knees to the ground, push back to child's pose. Take an inhale, feel the expansion in the lower back. Exhale, arching through to cobra. And then releasing the forehead to the ground. Exhale, pushing up to plank. No rush, breathing through plank. And then exhaling down dog. 3 breaths here. On your next inhale, rise up onto the toes, and exhale, jump or step forward. Inhaling, flat back. Exhaling, release. Holding the forward fold for the inhale. And then exhale, belly button to the spine as you roll up 1 vertebrae at a time. Inhale, big shoulder roll. Exhale, hands to your heart. Inhale. Exhale, fold. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, release. And go ahead and walk the feet to about the width of your mat. And drop the hips down. Maybe the feet point out a little bit. Don't be confined to the size or width of your mat. If you have really tight hips or really tight ankles, you're gonna need to let the feet go out a little bit, and that's okay. Drop the tailbone down to the ground, and then maybe bring the palms together, coming into prayer in front of your heart, opening up the knees a little bit. Yes, this is a hip opener, but what I want you to really think is about the release in your lower back. Because of how you have a nice long spine in this position, hopefully you're not crouched forward. Hopefully you're continuing to focus on your good posture. This is a really, really good way to release your lower back. 1 more breath. Release the hands to the ground. If you need to extend all the way up to walk the feet together, totally fine. And then we're going to shift onto our knees. So we're gonna go into camel, which for me, I need a whole lot of cushion underneath my knees. Maybe you don't. And I prefer having my toes tucked. Now this is a very non-traditional way, but as I've mentioned a few times, I have problems with my feet, so stretching out the toes really, really helps me. So we're all gonna start with our hips stacked right over our knees. And it really helps if you're new to yoga to have a mirror to see where your hips are. Because a lot of us have the tendency to drop our hips back, and that actually defeats the whole purpose. So, we're gonna start here with our hands on our hips and level ones. You're just gonna walk the hands down the thighs, pull the elbows back, and start to lift your chest towards the sky. So you have a very, very gentle back bend. The hips are still aligned over the knees, getting the same benefits without too much compression in the spine. Now, for those of you who would like more, take one hand at a time and reach for your heels. And if you find that your hips are starting to drop, maybe come back to level 1, or make a conscious effort
to push your hips a little farther forward. Now, the other reason I like doing it on my toes is because you have a natural block right there. But if you don't want to do it on your toes and you still need a little lift, you can always grab your blocks, place them on the outside of the ankles to give yourself a little lift. Now, some people like to drop their head. For me, that's really uncomfortable on my neck. So it's up to you, whatever feels good. Remember, the focus is on pushing the hips forward as though you were trying to push them into an imaginary wall. So if you are in the more advanced version, come back one hand at a time. Untuck the toes, and let's take just a quick breather in case your quads are starting to feel a little bit tired. And then go ahead and come back up. And we're going to do a little bit of a flowy version of this. So you're going to take one hand, reach it up and over and towards the foot. Opposite hand up and over and towards the foot. Switch again, up and over into the hip. Up and over and to the other hip. Now, if you want, you can just do that on the heels. So, up and over to the heel. Breathing. And then just stick with the heels. And what I like about this is it gives you a little bit of that openness in the chest and the shoulders as well as through the hips. One more time either side. And then this time as you sweep, come back to your hip. Ah, lovely. So untuck your toes again. And this time we're going to go into the opposite pose, so the counter pose. So we're going to go into rabbit. So you're going to take your forehead, and you're going to try to press your forehead to your kneecaps, or that little circle in between your kneecaps. You're going to take the crown of the head, and the crown of the head will touch the ground, but there should be no more than 10% of your body weight on the crown of the head. So step one is just this. Step two, take the hands, grab a hold of your heels nice and tight, and then use your strength in your legs to start to lift your body forward. You're not dumping your weight into your head, and your arms are there to, again, I've used the analogy of a bridge. Your arms are there to counteract the weight and the strain to help keep your body in alignment. So if you want to move on and you don't have neck problems, then you can go ahead, start here, and then lift up. Arms are engaged. Feet are not coming up off the ground. Keep the tops of the feet connected. And continue to pull with the hands on the heels. Release the hips back to the heels, and then roll yourself back up to upright, and just know that you're going to have an amazing hair day after that. All right, so go ahead and take your mat, if you had it folded up, release it back out, and then sit back, starting first in just a simple staff pose. Maybe give yourself a little shakes in the legs, and then walk the hands back and push yourself up into reverse plank. So a little bit of an arch. It may not look like an arch, but it should feel like an arch. And you should feel the strength through the back. Come back to staff. And then we're going to cross the legs and roll all the way over into regular plank. And then release yourself to the ground. Palms come down to either side. And we're going to first come up into locust with just the hands lifting off the ground. So the feet are going to stay connected. And I want you to think about squeezing the shoulder blades together so that you're really activating the upper back. We're gonna hold this here for a few breaths. One more inhale. Exhale, release. Hands come under the elbows, push yourself up, cross the feet beneath you, and roll into staff pose. Staff pose is just kind of like our break in between, so that we're having that split as we roll back and forth. Hands walk behind, and come up into reverse plank once again. Just 3 breaths. Release the hips back down, cross the feet, and step back to plank, gently lowering to the ground. So this time, the upper body is going to stay connected to the ground and the lower body is going to lift. It's okay if you can only get the feet up off the ground a few inches, but try to keep the head connected to the ground. So now we're focusing on strengthening the lumbar. 3 breaths here. Release the legs, hands come underneath the elbows to plank, and then cross the feet, roll over the ankles, and sit in staff pose. So believe it or not, staff pose requires a lot of core strength because most of us do not have the strength, so we sit like this. So that's why we're doing back work, right? To avoid that bad posture, squeeze the belly button to the spine, support the lower back, sit up tall. Now walk the hands again behind, just about 6 inches or so, and lift up, reverse plank. Release back down, cross the feet, and roll forward into plank. Gently release to the ground, and this time we're going to come into full locust, not to be confused with lotus. Locust, the grasshopper. All right, when you're ready, come up. And so now you should be focusing on more of the middle back, right? We already worked the upper back by itself. We already worked the lower back by itself. So now we're shifting towards the center. Everything's working together. There's not really one group that's working more than the other. One more breath. And release. We're not going to flip back to reverse plank here. Just take a breath with your head to the side. And then putting it all together, we're going to pick up our feet and come into bow pose. So grab your ankles, and with the strength of the lower body, start to push the feet into the hands, which is going to pick the upper body off the ground. So now you did a bunch of back strengthening. Bow does not really have as much to do with strengthening the back. It's more of a stretch or an arch because it's your legs that are doing the work. Your legs are pushing, your quads are engaged, and you just happen to be in a back bend. Notice that this looks exactly like bridge, but on your front. Interesting, right? Yoga can always be flipped upside down. One more breath, and release. Hands come underneath the elbows, push to plank, and then cross over the ankles, coming into staff. So because we did all of that lovely back work, you deserve one final stretch for your back. Inhale, exhale, fold, and just relax in your forward fold.
Doesn't that feel good on your lower back? Last breath. Release the hands and roll yourself back up to upright. Shift forward if you need to and gently roll back onto the ground. Hands come to a T, knees come up to tabletop. And we're just going to drop them for one breath to either side, just to release any final tension. As always, you can stay in either of these supine twists for a few more breaths, and you can stay as long as you want in Shavasana. Because we did so much back work, I like to give yourself a little massage for the lower back. So with the hands on the kneecaps, draw a couple circles with your knees. You should feel the floor underneath you, the pressure of the floor as you rock in a circle, and that should feel like a little massage in the lumbar and maybe tailbone area. One final hug, squeezing, rounding the back, and then release, coming into Shavasana. Let the body roll open, whatever that means for you. So Shavasana should feel very natural and weightless. Once you find the natural curve of the spine without putting pressure uncomfortably anywhere in your back, find stillness. Let the body recover. Let the blood flow through freely. And bring your breath back to a normal, relaxed breath. I love yoga classes that are focused on your back. I feel that your back is a very neglected part of your body, especially the way we all live in front of a screen. And I know that for many, many people out there, doing yoga has tremendously helped them with back pain. So I love being able to give that to people, help them find good posture, and hopefully relief from their pain. Again, feel free to stay here as long as you'd like. But if you are ready, go ahead and start to reawaken the body. Little movements starting from the extremities and then shifting more towards the core of the body so that you're waking up from the outside in. And then however works for you, come to a comfortable seated position. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you enjoyed that. If you do notice any back pain tomorrow, please feel free to reach out and we can talk about how you went through some of the poses and maybe there needs to be slight adjustments so that you're protecting your back and doing what's safe for you. All right, thank you again. Have a wonderful evening. Namaste.